Hey, friends and family. Hey, loved ones. Hey, everyone. How is your heart today? How are you feeling? How are you feeling in your body? How are you feeling in your mind? How are you feeling in your whole being? Yeah. Just sending love and blessings and well wishes. And from my heart to yours, all this appreciation for all the beauty and all the magic and all the love that we are. Happy new moon today. It's a new moon in Virgo. And so I've just been initiating and beginning and continuing with certain changes. New dedication and a renewal in all my relations with this whole, full, true, this well-being that we are in service to the whole. Yeah, just renewing my commitment to my devotion and to this partnership with spirit, to this partnership with life, to this partnership with love. And that means that I don't need to control anything, and I just get to trust, and I just get to listen. And I get to allow and accept and respond. And oh gosh, it hasn't been easy to let go. And I still, notice when I slide back into that ego control and trying to figure things out and want so desperately to know certain things. But then I can just breathe and let go again. So just taking, at one moment at a time and changing my mind, opening my mind and softening the edges. And so being willing to allow what wants to fall away and what wants to come into being. So trust, deep knowing, it's okay to let go. It's okay to let go. It's okay not to know. It's okay to be here. It's okay to flow. It's okay to be here. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to have courage. It's okay. It's all okay. So just wake up and play. All right. Okay. Play fucking A. So love always, 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 always. Love through always, for always, in all ways. And there's a few things I wanted to share today about using the sacred mirror and looking deeply within to reconcile the two that were in conflict and at war within me. And just seeing into how there has been imbalances and excesses and deficiencies, and where I had rejected my full totality and different parts of me. And yeah, seeing that I rejected my human side and I rejected my own divinity. And so, of course, what was that going to create for me? A sense of lack and a sense of brokenness and powerlessness and fragmentation. And so that's why I see that some of my relationships they were a mirror for me to help me see where I hadn't been showing up for me, where I had been disallowing, dishonoring, dismissing, devaluing, not accepting me, rejecting, and disrespecting me. And so I see now that all of those parts and all of those aspects and were legitimate, and they needed to play out in certain ways to show me certain things where I had been not fully honoring me, and where it was impossible, or it seemed impossible, to show up for me and reconcile the split within me. And I see now some of the mechanisms that and the strategies that were used to keep reinforcing this reality for me and kept perpetuating the pain and suffering over and over again. And so thank you, dear friends. Thank you, dear beloveds and dear companions. Thank you, dear teachers and dear reflections, for helping me to see and know and love and include, honor and unify all things within me, to love myself for the good of all beings. That's what is really being asked, for us to love ourselves, to love all of ourselves, all parts of ourselves, and to unify them within ourselves. As above, so below. As within, so without. The outer and the inner are not separate. They are connected. So it's such an amazing thing to see. So, yeah, just grateful, reflecting back on these last 2 years of my journey and my coming home to me. And although it was painful and it wasn't pretty and some of it was messy, very uncomfortable, very heartbreaking, very earth-shaking, earth-shattering, to have all of these things collapse in front of me and show me like what I'd created and what I've been continuing to contribute to. And that was like lack mentality and victim consciousness. And I didn't see fully how I was still playing into that. But these 3 relationships that were such a gift for me helped me to see that, like how there was an imbalance there, and how I kept creating and reinforcing these prisons for me, and actually collaborating too with other people's agendas that kept perpetuating pain. And so I opened up my journal from last month, from July, and just looking. The cave, Plato's allegory. So, yeah, if you know that allegory, the cave, it's about these people that are all chained to a wall in a cave. And there is this area in front of them where lights are being projected and shadows are being cast on the wall. And that is their reality, because that is what they can see. They are only faced in this way, and they can only see like the shadow play and the light play on the wall. They don't see what's actually creating it, because what's creating it is behind them. And so, yeah, there's some interesting like self-deception going on, or some kind of unconscious, programming going on, in certain ways. And so, yeah, this is the reality that they see. They interpret what they see like through their beliefs and through like past experiences and past memories. And then there's actually one individual that actually gets free from his chains, and he actually looks around and he sees behind that there is like a fire behind them, and that like the figures that are behind them actually are casting the shadows on the wall and creating like that reality, that projected reality that everybody else is seeing. And so then he actually decides to go outside of the cave to a whole nother spectrum of consciousness. And what happens is he goes out of the entrance of the cave, and he actually sees like true sunlight, true light for the first time. And he's blinded by it. It's really hard to see. His eyes need time to adjust, and they tear up, and he's just so like actually like at once like horrified and mesmerized by like all of the new sights and the things that he's never ever seen before. And it's just such a interesting world of wonder and awe, and just beyond his wildest imagination, or what he's ever been able to dream or see before. And so, yeah, exploring this new world and seeing that there's so much more than just like this one cave or this one channel like this one TV station that we're tuned into, or this one radio station, and that's all, all the things that we're receiving. But then like can plug into like all of these other channels and get all of this other, reception. And so he's got to come back and share it with somebody, because he wants to share it and talk about it. And like, yeah, just have someone like to like share this with him. And so he's not all alone. And yeah, so he goes back to the cave and he tells the people that he had left behind, like, oh my gosh, this is what I found, and this is what I saw, and this is what's going on. And some of the people like are really upset and angry with him, and they want him to come back and put his chains back on and come back to their reality, and to merge with their reality again, and to collaborate and prop up and reinforce, what they're comfortable in, because, they've never moved from that spot, and that's where they've always been. That's all they've known. And so there's like a lot of resistance to changing our minds sometimes. And it's like, because we're fearful of the unknown, and we're, it's just one of those things like that we fear change sometimes, that we want change, but yet we don't in a lot of ways, because it's uncomfortable, and it upsets the the apple cart and the way things are supposed to be, And so, yeah, this is kind of fun just to look at those things, like how I can see, like, in my own situation, yeah, I can understand, like, sometimes people don't want to wake up to other things. They want to be reassured that, yeah, everything is what they think it is, or what they've been taught to believe it is. Because that's like kind of the structures that we get locked into, in the boxes that we get comfortable in our own mind prisons and cages. And the other outside world, or the world beyond that, like, what can we do with that? Like, it's too scary sometimes, like, and we want this like sheltered cave or whatever, even if it is like our own prison. So I feel like that is why, in so many ways, we can be our own prison guard. And we're the ones that hold the keys, though, like, to set ourselves free. We need to be able to choose that for ourselves. There's other people that can help, like, inspire us or coax us, or maybe help us become curious about certain things. But ultimately, it's ourselves that needs to make that choice, to get up and to explore the unknown, or to go outside of the cave, or to be born into like a new life, come what may. And so it does take courage and bravery, and yeah, just remembering it's okay to be afraid and brave. So looking at the weirdo, the dreamer, head in the clouds, or head in the sand, the intellectual feeler and lame ass cop-outs, the alien, the underdog, the outsider, and the freak, the wrong one, poor me, I'm all alone, the bystander and the drive-by victim. Things just get to play out for us to realize our own power, the truth of our responsibility. But all of this has shown me a wonderful way to observe or detach from others and what they need, want, expect, and think of me, or their projections, their projected version of reality. It's not really about me, and I won't stand for shit that is not true or aligned with me in my relationships and in or within love's field of energy, this deep and true full well integrity. So knowing what I am going to allow and what I am not going to allow in my own sacred space, that's good to know, and good to have healthy boundaries. Maybe there are more appropriate parts of me than I've previously seen or believed, if and when I allow them space to have a place to be all they are. Yeah, trippy ass things I heard on a podcast about Gnosticism and the modern parasite cleanse, or modern Gnosticism and the parasite cleanse. Everything is dyslexic today or lately, reversed and mirrored in the most fun house sort of ways. Oy vey, clearing distortions and misperceptions. What if I don't have to control anything? What if the real power is in letting it be, letting it unfold for me, letting love be and allowing the flow in receptivity, responding and projecting with my own true vision and my own unified reality, my own inner voice and inner knowing, my fertile imagination and my sacred psychic space and my creative energy. And it is all a learning curve, so just allow the process. Allow the process to unfold and show me all I need to see. In unity for harmony, balance, inclusivity. A healthy whole, a healthy me and we, a whole healing for every being. And I thank all the parts for playing their part, for all that is that could be. And I bless all the healing taking place, although it doesn't look as it should be. Man, some harsh shit came up to the surface to be accepted, allowed, transformed, and seen in the light of truth, wholeness, reconfiguration, and unity. For true trust and transparency is deepening, and all that is not trustworthy must be brought into the light to be seen. We must stop lying to ourselves and see where we have played into this self-deception separation game. Because what is needed is a whole sense of self, a whole sense of self, a healthy sense of self, the self in relation to the whole. So persecuting the villain for our ego's self-righteous gains, propping itself up so clever, substantial, and vain, trying to cover up for its inherent vulnerability of being small and insignificant in the scheme of separate things. Ah, damn it. Just want to call out the shit and bring it into the light of awareness. Frozen lakes and ponds and spiritual necrophilia, mental illness and schizophrenia, sociopathic tendencies, narcissism and codependence, hyperconformity and neo-tribalism, identities, aversions, fears, prejudices, addictions, projections, attachments, parasites in a parasitic system, monkey see, monkey do, unconscious antics, blarg, 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 what more can I do? Repulsion and denial, it's super hard to come to grips with. A rude, wake the fuck up call. How do I respond to that really and truly, sometimes gracefully and sometimes not so generously or pristinely, like a mad dog? Don't shoot the messenger, just receive or choose to disagree with the personality or the agenda at play. Ego and personality can be the biggest cock block if we are stuck in the identity or the one-way street of this little me. Spiritual ego, super ego, tantrums, and expectations of the way it's supposed to be. Ego traps and artificial spiritual glass ceilings, program mentality of false perfection, and holy smoke and mirrors obscuring our ability to see clearly by looking. Yeah, we've been trained to look on the outside, expecting things to change. He who looks outside dreams, he who looks within awakens. Awakening to the dream and the simulation, the dance, the game, the story of all stories, the right to be free, the right to freely be, the right to fully be without so much trying, suffering, and efforting. Enjoying our existence and what and who we get to be. Simplicity, grounding, stability, integrity, wholeness, freedom, and accountability, spiritual currency. Don't tread on me, own your own shit and your own energetic responsibilities. And so, yeah, I think that was a good little entry from July that I got to see after an uncomfortable interaction that needed to play itself out with my husband. And yeah, that is awesome because I love like my relationships and different things that can come up to show me like where certain things have been in balance or where certain things are ready to be restructured and aligned with the new integrity that can be held on this new foundation that is built on wholeness, oneness, and wellness, the circle of everything. In the circle, we are all equal. No one is in front, no one is behind, no one is above, no one is below. Here we are truly one. And so all parts. So it's like the oneness and the multiplicity. All parts of the whole. And each part in the whole has a part to play for the whole and through the whole. And so each part holds the whole within it, and the whole holds each part. And so I feel like that's one way where we've been really super disconnected and fragmented and confused about who we are. And so, yeah, changing our minds one day at a time and removing these old binds and blinders, and cages, that we've built in our minds. And so some of these relationships that were there to show me where I wasn't showing up for me. They were super, super interesting, and I feel like I'm ready to share about them. And I do want to use mindful care because I know that not all of my grief is, completely healed. I'm still going through that grieving process, but I feel like a lot more clear about it. And I feel like I'm in a place where I have let like a lot of the things that I took personally, I no longer, I'm taking them personally, and I see it as a gift that was offered to me, and it happened for me to help me become more unified within me and actually like build this integrity and align with this integrity, and knowing that like my true self, that's who and what I am, And so it was like painful to kind of see in a certain light where I'd been out of harmony with myself and where I'd been out of integrity and where I'd been lying to myself, sometimes consciously and unconsciously. Some of the lies I was totally unaware of, and some of them I knew I was playing into, and I knew I was choosing them. It was defense mechanisms and survival strategies and coping mechanisms, and just like knowing that, it's okay. I'm allowed my own salt too, and trying to choosing to let like some of that old perfectionism or the idealization of how things were supposed to be, like letting all of that shit go and accepting like what is right now, what has been, and what can and will and shall be. And so, sometimes it's easy to get into that space of neutrality and using the impersonal lens, but then also knowing that there's the swing of the pendulum that comes back again, and then it's, then it feels a little more personal or a little more intense or a little more raw. And so embracing the extremes of my life and like the two poles within, and holding that tension of the opposites and all those things. And so these 3 relationships, I wrote like a little bit today, and then I'll expand on these things and ask what love wants to say. What does love want to say for the benefit of all beings, and in authentic transparency, what can be shared around these things for service to the whole and the greatest growth of all, and my own true well-being and my own integrity and the integrity of the whole. And so thank you, Owl Medicine. Being truthful with myself. So what can my toxic or imbalanced relationships show me about where I wasn't showing up for myself? And this had been like the mother, father, child wound. in all of my relationships that I could see that were coming up to show me very clearly within those distorted relationships, distorted realities, distorted projections, distorted reflections. Yeah, it was a lot to kind of sift through and to look through and to work through, but kind of just letting some of the surface stories go and some of my own agendas go, being aware of them, that I wanted to be right, that I needed to be seen as right, that I needed to be seen as worthy, that I wanted to belong, that I wanted people to, accept me, love me, like me, approve of me, validate me, hear me, see me, understand me, all those things. And so it's just wow. So just looking at some of these archetypes and some of these dynamics, codependent narcissistic relationships and dynamics, and the archetypes that seem to have been really dominant players in this play, in this game, were the martyr and the miser, the judge and the victim, the rescuer and the damsel in distress, mother superior, the golden child and the scorned one, the hero savior, the villain monster, the wounded child, the wounded mother, the orphan, the whore and the beggar, the saboteur and the prude, the outsider, the rebel, the seeker, the imposter, the fraud, the addict, the feral child and the blind guardian, the idealist, the epicure, or the eternal child, the child that doesn't want to grow up and take responsibility, because fuck that. I mean, because the adult world is pretty messed up. But it's just kind of funny, the models that we've seen, or the models and the patterns that we've been encouraged to emulate and follow and mimic or mirror, or, all those things. And so just seeing what my aversion was to actually what I felt was growing up, because I didn't want to do any of that shit. That was a bunch of bullshit, but then it actually caused some complexes and some overcompensation in other ways, where I wasn't owning my own shit. And so, yeah, it's good to see that now in hindsight. And so, yeah. The wounded healer and the wounded warrior, the wounded masculine and feminine, the covert fragile narcissist, the fixer, the caregiver, the tyrant and the slave, the dissident daughter, the distant separate father, the prodigal son returns, the dairy cow, the doormat, Atlas, the scapegoat, the sinner and the saint, and the angel and the devil, all at play. So I saw how I was getting sucked into others' ego agendas, stories, wounds, projections, desires, needs, and strategies. I was trying to make up for perceived lack and powerlessness, helplessness. Yeah, the things that I thought me and we lacked. Some of these relationships could connect with some of these people and some of these loved ones in some emotionally legitimate ways, but a lot of the time it was actually something that was safe because they weren't emotionally available. And so, yeah, they were emotionally unavailable. And this was showing me about my shut down feeling function, the feeling function that I had shut down within myself, and where I wasn't and hadn't been able to be emotionally available for me and my own inner child and all the parts of me that really needed my own love. And so a lot of this, stuff, wanting to receive certain things outside of myself because I didn't value the love I had for myself, and had no sense of real self-worth when it came down to it. There was things that I liked about myself, but I really didn't believe in my own self-worth. And so this was self-doubt and all the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth guessing, which is related to self-deceit and trauma bonding, enmeshment trauma and instinct injury, unconscious agreements, and my aversion and avoidance to pain, certain responsibilities and suffering anything that felt uncomfortable or felt uneasy. It's like my fixer would want to jump right in there and fix that shit because, man, that was too much. That was so uncomfortable. I didn't want to feel that. And so not allowing like the healing process to take place in certain ways because it didn't want to go through that temporary discomfort. But then I was actually creating like a whole lot more pain for myself and misery that went on and on and on and on and on just for this temporary, like instant gratification to smooth over something on the surface. But yeah, I see now in hindsight, like where that really didn't serve me. And so, yeah, been able to see a lot of things in whole new ways. Thank you to the people that helped me see these things and contracted with me to have these relationships for this whole healing for all beings. And that's why I'm grateful. And so as I share some of these things about these people that I love that I was very angry with, because there was a part of me that was so angry with myself and angry for like being made to feel like the wrong one, the bad one, and the one that was responsible. And I know I convinced myself of some of those things long time ago, that I was responsible for some of these things when really I wasn't. And I can forgive myself for that, and I can forgive all others and know that all is forgiven and all is well. And so some of the, these 3 relationships that came up and that they were like really, really hard. That was hard for me to walk away from and hard for me to let go of because I had such high hopes and I had invested so much energy into these relationships. But like, that was just part of me, like trying to fill a hole that I had within myself. And so like I would use these relationships as, I use them to help me feel good about myself, to have like an anchor, to have something validate me from the outside, or maybe, even part of an identity that I had formed, like to reinforce that identity, And so the caregiver has been, a role that I'm familiar with, as the outsider has been a familiar role, the outsider and the outcast. And so, I see how like in a lot of ways, those two have danced together. And just like the martyr and the miser did. And the martyr, like, because I really do want to help and I love helping others. But it like really helped me avoid my own responsibility, where I was focusing on other people's care needs and things, which taught me a lot. And I'm so super glad and grateful that I was able to learn in these roles and actually serve others and learn, how to show up myself by caring for others, through caring for others. And then knowing that I deserve that same care for myself that I would give to other people who I loved, and other people that I just wanted to like offer and share and serve. Working as a healthcare giver, like I, started as a CNA when I was about 17 years old, and I loved that. I loved all the older people, like taking care of them. They were all like grandmas and grandpas, and I really did appreciate them, and I loved helping them. It made me feel so good. Just to know like that they felt so loved too, and that it made them feel good. That made my heart feel so good. And so, yeah, I can see how this was a pattern, like, helping other people helps me feel better about myself sometimes. But sometimes, like, that could be out of balance and excessive. And then I don't leave anything else for myself. And then I slip into that miser role where I don't have anything else to give to anyone. And I don't want to give because I feel like I've been taken advantage of, or I've been depleted and drained, and there is nothing else to give. And so there was this weird imbalance in that game when I didn't include myself in my own caregiving. And so, yeah, it's super interesting to look at anyways. But, yeah, these 3 relationships, and they were all with females. And I had built up a lot of history with them, and there was definite imprintings from childhood, and like trauma bonding and trauma enmeshment going on there. And so I wanted to share like a little more about that, because there is so much for me to see about it. So just going to take a second. Okay. Intermission. And so, yeah, I was just wondering, like, what really wants to be shared about this, because there's so many things that I could share about it. And I really, like, my intention isn't to bash anyone or to make the other wrong, because that's not at all what I see about it. But there were certain things from the personal lens that felt so very wrong about it. And just because of that old patterning of having to make someone else wrong, or to make myself wrong, or the situation wrong, in order for me to justify my actions in, like, either leaving or separating myself from them, or the situation. And so, like, now I know that I don't need to do that anymore, and I just get to see it as a whole, and say thank you, life, for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever. But, like, really to be honest about, like, how some of these things, like, played out. There is a story, behind it, and there's the characters that we played, or there's the characters that we project onto others so that they can play them for us, so that we don't have to own our own shit and our own power. So it's kind of funny, the games we play with ourselves, So, holy bullshit, projection city, scapegoating, persecution, condescension, gaslighting, twisting, distorting, blaming, projecting and creating the enemy, skirting responsibility, rejecting the power to be free. I am not a victim of my reality. How is this happening for me and we? Refusal, rejection, denial, betrayal, avoidance, survival, comfort zone strategies. Confrontation, clearing the way, shaking it up, getting dirty, embracing the asshole and that's currently playing with me and we. Thank you, dear asshole, for helping me see. I can speak up for myself, set my boundaries, stop playing that small ego game of horror, villain, hero, savior, pimp, beggar, martyr, miser, orphan, rescuer, saboteur, damsel, knight in dingy armor, victim, tyrant, epicure, Quasimodo, motherfucker, monster, outcast, undesirable. Clear out your excuses and put the rest to bed. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Trust that love is flowing everywhere. Let it all burn and whatever, and be all, let it all burn or be cleansed away. And whatever is meant to be will be for the greatest growth, highest good, best outcome, greatest love and joy for all. All roads lead to the summit. All paths lead home. Let people have their shit. But yeah, I don't need to allow them to dump all over me. No, thank you. Own your own shit. Thank you. Yes, please. And so, yeah, who is loving who? Who is serving who? Who is hating who? Who is harming who? Who is being true? Who is it? Who are you? Who the hell are you? It's all you. Love always. Look within and look into you. I am willing to own my own bullshit. I am willing to take accountability and claim responsibilities to honor all I am, to honor all this love I've been given. I will choose love for me as I am, for all of me and we. I am willing to forgive myself and all my mistakes. I am willing to see the innocence of every single one, every single being. I am willing to hold compassion and forgiveness and be the witness. In my heart, trust, allowance, authentic acceptance, mercy and grace, strength, faith, peace, empathy, gratitude, and humility. Thank you. I have no complaints whatsoever. Thank you, life, for everything. Unity, consciousness, and harmony. Nothing is wasted. Bullshit is gold. Everything is useful. Yeah. Everything has a part in the whole. Yeah. So hold the space and make the room for it all to be. Rooting deeply, remembering flexibility, non-attachment, and right seeing. It has always been you. The light and the shadow, the mirror and the present gift and opportunity. To alchemize, to purify, to come home to ourselves in unity. To fortify and detoxify, to build and nourish. Even when it's uncomfortable, to confront and express vulnerabilities. So let go of being right and winning the gold star, the golden badge of so-called honor and being right. See the highest potential and the wholeness in everyone. We are all walking each other home. So yeah, I think that's awesome intention. The intention behind the action of sharing like this is not to make anyone else wrong, but just to kind of share my own experience and just share what I learned and how they helped me see like where I was sabotaging and dishonoring me and not allowing me, not showing up for me. Rejecting and minimizing and devaluing me and my energy and the gifts I've been given to be because of this old, silly programming and this artificial screen, this artificial reality and this artificial me. And so like just the imposter fraud and the play actor and the pretender and just go along to get along in certain ways. But yeah, I always had those conflicts, which were so funny. Like in certain ways, there was a certain part of me that would not, could not, was not going to go along with certain things, would not compromise on some things. But then on other things, like, yeah, those were my vulnerabilities and my weaknesses and my blind spots were, there were certain things I did go along with because it was easier. It was just easier to do that rather than to make waves or to stand up for myself or to fend for myself or to be all alone, little me, separate me. And so, what happened in like July of 2020, I started to see certain patterns and certain things like with 3 like core relationships that I had and that were really, really important or felt like really valuable and necessary for me, like to continue and to play into. But then I realized, you know what? If they really cared about me, like, why aren't they showing up for me? And if they, I feel like if someone really, really wants to make time and show up, that they will. Like, no excuses will keep them from doing that because they're already making certain choices. And I know how life can get, but when it's like a consistent pattern, it's like obvious through their actions rather than their words, And so I stopped kind of listening in certain ways to what was being said, and I listened to what was not being said. And so that's kind of how I was able to see through some of this bullshit that had pulled the wool right over the eyes, covering my whole head. Yeah. And so like, it's just kind of funny how I was just kind of following along and projecting, a lot of my own shit onto the other. So I wasn't really seeing them as they were. I was projecting a painted on, image of myself onto them, of what I wanted them to carry for me, of what I wanted them to be for me, of what I needed like them to hold for me and what they needed to carry for me. And maybe in a way they were doing the same thing to me. And so it was a big circle jerk. Yeah. And no wonder it was so confusing, and it wasn't very pleasant and comfortable like letting some of these things go, or like just kind of communicating some of these things to my loved ones, and, you know, like not really feeling like they could understand or that they could receive what I was offering and what I was asking for as well. And it's okay. Like I just had to let that go, that they don't understand. And I really wanted them to take accountability for their part that they played in it, because I was willing to take accountability for mine. And I thought, hey, maybe we can work this out, you know. But they were unwilling to meet me where I was, and I had to set my boundaries and cut the cords and just kind of say, okay, well, you know, I love these loved ones in my life, but I can no longer continue these dynamics and these patterns with them. So I need to separate myself, and I need to take a break, and I need to come back home to me. And it was one of the best decisions that I did make. And then a few months later, in October of 2020, I just got off Facebook altogether. And that has been one of the greatest choices that I could have made for myself as well, to make the space and make the room for me to come home to myself and kind of eliminate some of those distractions and some of those old addictions and substitutions, and saboteur patterns. And that kept me in certain loops and certain stories and certain roles and certain identities, and reinforcing masks, armor, and play acting roles. So it was super painful, like, to break up. I even made a soul storyboard about that, where there was like a cat and a dog, and it was like breaking up is hard to do. And sometimes you just need to let go of others, not because you don't care, but because they don't. And like, I know that they did have care for me, but they didn't have enough care to take action in certain ways. So I needed to take that action for myself. And that's what I got to choose. And that's what I got to do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, thank you, all of you, for helping me to see certain things about, like, this imbalance within me. And so, like, what was going on back then was I had a sister that I've been close to, that we have a lot of history together because we grew up together. She's 3 years younger than I am. And, we've gone through different phases and stages in our own relationship, where we've been close at certain times and then not so close at other times. And then, like, maybe just like very, like, care about each other, but a little bit distant, and that's okay too. Like, to have our own lives, and maybe sometimes they parallel and intersect and stuff, but willing to, like, allow her own life, whatever that gets to look like for her and be for her. But like, the way that the interaction was between us, and it was very, very toxic, and it did not feel good at all. And I wasn't willing to play along with that anymore, and just to, like, make her comfortable and laughing at jokes that weren't funny, or responding in certain ways that she wanted me to respond. I just wasn't going to, like, play act anymore without being true to myself. My loyalty was to myself and to what I really needed. And so that was kind of a different, position, or a different place to be in the relationship. And I don't think she liked that. It made her feel uncomfortable. As well. But speaking for myself, what I realized about that relationship was it showed me the covert, fragile narcissist, the one that was always in self-pity and that had taken on so much responsibility and was the martyr in action, really, like slowly being killed, but was so righteous, for that, like, like letting the parasites feed, but not seeing it as that, like, kind of like looking at, like, how noble it was, like, the sacrifice that I'm making, because it makes me feel good that I'm helping out other people. But then like we're really doing a disservice to myself. So I could see like some of those patterns playing out. And she's always had like a really good work ethic, and she's always worked really hard and really, really tried so hard to make a lot of different things work. But it's kind of like sometimes I can relate to this, like pounding our head against a wall and like thinking we're actually doing something like noble for ourselves, but we're not, you know, we're just hurting ourselves. And so, she did have like a very demanding job and a big, huge workload. Like she was doing like the job of like 3 people, you know, every day. And so I was like kind of seeing like that helped me to see some kind of Atlas stuff, like carrying the world on our shoulders and how we do that, you know, because like sometimes, you know, we're badasses and we can do a lot, but then we over identify with like our worth with how much we can do or how much it helps somebody else or what that like external image, you know, that someone else holds of us, like, you know, that props up our worth and our value and secures our place, you know, and then like kind of putting ourselves on our own pedestal because, yeah, man, we look at how hard we worked and we sacrificed so much and we put so much energy into this. And now like, and there's going to be a payback or a payoff, or it's going to come back around somehow. Kind of, we like trick ourselves, like the carrot on the stick kind of thing, and future baiting. Like, oh, if you only, you know, keep doing this, like, and then eventually you can retire and then you can enjoy your life, but you can't enjoy it right now. You know, you don't have time right now for any of those good things, but you will later because you're sacrificing yourself so that you can have this later. And that's like comes from lack mentality and poverty consciousness, and that there's not enough and there's not enough time and there's not enough resources. And someone else doesn't have enough. So I've got to give them like what I have or whatever and not leave anything for me. And like, you know, all that martyr, and then the miser comes up later eventually. And so like if we're giving, and there's that imbalance in one area of our life, then maybe we're going to be taking from another area of our life, you know, like to make up for it. Or, you know, there's these complexes and overcompensating, you know, unconscious mechanisms like for overcompensation, like because of like the way we're undermining our own selves. And so it is like, it's an interesting thing to look at, and the pendulum swing. And so I hope this makes some sort of sense. Maybe I should just stop trying to explain it and just speak what's in my heart. But yeah, we'll get there eventually, won't we? All paths lead to home. And so taking all these detours and all these unknown roads, or maybe familiar roads, but it's been such a long time that it all looks different anyways. Yay, rambles and tangents and everything. So, so my sister, she would be on the phone a lot for her job, and it was very mentally, emotionally, and of course, like physically taxing. And she'd been, you know, struggling like a lot of people in my family have with like chronic fatigue. And I am no stranger to that as well, with the chronic fatigue syndrome and things like an adrenal burnout and all those things, like seriously. So like I do have a lot of compassion for that. And I know how hard it is sometimes to get out of bed and get moving sometimes when we have like, we feel so drained and depleted. But just this force of will that keeps us going and going and going until we collapse or we get really sick, or there's something that like forces us to rest sometimes. But yeah, we just keep like plugging away and giving our life force and our power away because that's what we think we need to do, you know, to be worthy or to be valued, or for someone else to approve of us and affirm that we're legit. And so, yeah, I know that she had a relationship breakup with someone who she had been dating, long term, and she had a very demanding job, and like just there were certain things that were collapsing and not working for her. But the way that it played out in our relationship, like it just didn't feel good at all to me, and like it's just so imbalanced and uneven, and there were some weird projections going on, and it had gotten back to me, because gossip always usually does, and rumors usually do come back around, and they really do hurt the person that they were about, and they actually do a lot of damage for the person who put them out there. And so, like, yeah, it's just interesting to see those things in a lot of ways, where some of the things that she said to another family member got back to me, and it really, really hurt me. And I was very, very disappointed, and like feeling very angry that she had, said these things to me, and that I felt like she wasn't being impeccable with her word, and she wasn't being honest, and she wasn't being transparent. But like, that helped me see where I could be those things that I needed for me, and not expecting it to come from the outside, not expecting someone else to change their mind. And so what happened was, it's like, she was playing the part of the fragile covert narcissist for me, and telling me about all of her woes and all of her problems. And it's like, it feels like it's been like this after one relationship after the other, one friendship after the other, one job after the other, how it's always happening to her, and how it's never like her responsibility or because of her own actions. It's always because of somebody else, like doing something else to her. And she would always have this like black rain cloud over her head, like Eeyore, And then when she didn't have that black rain cloud, it was like more of a forced humor kind of a thing, where it didn't really seem all that authentic or like genuine in certain ways. And so it kind of like, it was like either trauma bonding or fakery in a lot of different ways. And yeah, some of it just didn't feel like it was authentic at all anymore. And there wasn't any trust there, or any space like really held for true authenticity, receptivity, or connection to truly be. And so she did, like just say how exhausted she was, and how her job drained her during the day. So she didn't have a lot of energy to really give to anybody else, because that was like sucking it all up, was like all the things she had going on already. And so it's just like, that's fine. I don't expect anything of you. I'm not asking anything of you. But like, we lived together, and there would be like days and days and days and days that would go by, like where she wouldn't even say a word because she didn't even have that energy. But it was like kind of a lame ass cop out in a lot of ways, where you can't even say hello to someone in your own house, and you separate yourself and you make yourself so important, so self-important, because it's like, I'm the victim and I'm the one that's working my ass off every day. And like, yeah, I'm the only important one here, and you don't have feelings because you're not useful. Yeah. And that's what it made me feel like. And it was like she was withholding love and attention and approval, like from me. And this somehow made her superior in certain ways. And that's how I felt like, and it was like on purpose. Like she was upset with me, so she would withhold. And so it was this old family pattern of push and pull, of withholding approval and love and attention and affection. It was a toxic push and pull dynamic. And so like that person like goes along or plays that part that you want them to play. And then you're like, they're back in your good graces. And then they're a little smothering sometimes. And so like, I'm very familiar with that pattern because of a pattern that I had with my mother, and I could see that my mother had with a younger sister, and my younger sister actually carried on that same pattern with a pet, with her cat, where she would neglect it for days and days, wouldn't even pay attention to it. And then she would smother it with love and wouldn't let it go. And so it was, the cat became very neurotic. And I was just like, this is like really interesting to see this, like how this pattern keeps like kind of playing itself out, this push and pull dynamic of being the ghost and then being the helicopter, like the shadow caregiver. And then being unavailable, and then, and then not giving that other person room to breathe or move. And so it was very like, okay, how is this? How can I look at this and see how this has been playing out in my own life as well? And so the silent sister, like where I felt like she had more energy to give to a stranger, like, how sometimes like we're walking down the street and we see someone passing by and we'll raise a hand. We'll acknowledge, hello, how you doing? And then that's as simple as that. Like, it doesn't have to take any effort or a ton of energy just to smile and acknowledge another person. Hello, how you doing? Okay. And so it was like, she didn't even have that for me. Like, and I thought that was so disrespectful and so rude. And it really did, like, it really bothered me. Like, and, it was really hard for me not to want to go fix it and not to want to like just resolve it. But I was like, this isn't mine to fix. And so I'm just going to allow it. And this is just going to be awkward and uncomfortable. And it took everything that I had to let go of this resistance that I had, that I needed to fix this and I needed to make it right and comfortable again. So I was, so I could feel okay, she could feel okay, and we could be okay. But I just had to let that go. And this silence treatment story played out for months, where we didn't speak to each other for months, living in the same house. And it was just ridiculous. And then finally, because I was going to like let her come to me. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to withdraw from you for a little while. And until you can accept me as I am and be accountable for your own part in this, then I'm just going to step away. And so that's what I did. And so it was kind of like leaving it up to her when she was ready, to, kind of come back and let me back in. But that never actually happened. And I was just so done with like how the energy in the house felt, like so tense. And my husband was like really not liking it either. And he was like really just, we had never really lived alone. We've had an empty nest for a while, like our kids have been gone for a while, but we've always had like different family members or living with us. And he's just like, I really want it to just be us. Can we have our own space together and all of that? And I always kind of felt like, well, yeah, we could do that, but I always want family with me, and I always want like room for guests and for friends and family to stay, and like I always want like all these loved ones around me. And so it was like I was still, in a way, I was cock blocking myself and like my husband's like wishes that it could just be us, for this new chapter of like what we're creating and what we're building. And so finally I was just like, yeah, you know what? I think it is time. And part of me that was kind of like, well, it's beneficial for both of us because we have the room here and she can help pay us, some rent, and that'll help us with some of our expenses and stuff. And I was just kind of being realistic with myself. You know what? We really don't need that. We, I feel like maybe we actually do, we need more space for ourselves, like to be like, and to become what we will be. And so it was just like a decision that I made with some guidance, like, okay, well, I guess I'll just write her a letter and say, thanks. I've learned a lot, and we we no longer require a roommate. So how about you can find yourself a new place and all those things, and no hard feelings and whatnot. And so actually it was just like, yep, it's time for this to change. And that was like really, really hard for me. I didn't know how it was like going to happen and how it was going to be received. And like, yeah, what other things were going to be like, what other stories were going to be told to, acquaintances, friends, and family about like what a monster I was and stuff. But I was just like, that's okay. I can accept that. You know, if I need to be the bad guy right now, I'm actually willing to be seen as that. And that's okay, because these boundaries really need to be honored. And this does not feel good in my space right now. And I can choose what I allow and what I will not allow into my space. And so that's, you know, like what happened with that. And so it was like super like sad. And I was so angry about it because I felt so rejected. But I see now in a lot of ways, like how like there is certain parts of her that didn't want to be challenged and that didn't want that apple cart to be upset in certain ways. And my otherness and these misperceptions and assumptions of what she thought I believed, like really colored her own lenses. And it really did like kind of relate to being a threat, or some of these aspects that were coming up and being shown to her, like and through reflection, had to do with like threats of projection, or projected threats to her identity, to her foundation of reality in certain ways. And so I was like willing not to take certain things personally and know that it was all really because of misperceptions and fear and just things that related to a mother wound and to her own like sense of self, and to like this victim consciousness as well. And so there were certain patterns that were playing out. And I was no longer willing, when she came for that supply, to feed her, and playing along with certain things and playing old familiar roles and caregiver patterns and everything. So the silent sister, the one that withholds attention and approval, the one that is better than you, more useful, the one that is more important and productive, more worthy, right, and true. And so I got to see like where some of my inferiority and superiority complexes were at play with that. And so I really learned a lot about that, and how actually I was playing a covert narcissist as well in certain other areas of my life, and how I was playing into self-pity, and how I was kind of sometimes playing into that and getting my supply needed, or my supply needs met from other relationships. And so it was a very, very good mirror to help me see a lot of these things that were imbalance in me. And so another relationship that I had that I needed to let go of and sever the cords to was a lifelong friend who I'd been friends with since I was 5 years old. And we'd have gaps in our like friendship or active friendship where we'd disappear from each other's lives for a couple of years, and we'd call each other, maybe make a reconnection in our 20s, like while we were, you know, deep in our addictive, substitutions and things. And just kind of every few years we'd pick up where we left off and continue our trauma bonding together and everything. And I felt like I was really a dairy cow, and she would only come around when it was time for a tit squeeze, you know, to get that supply for her own self. And she knew I was going through like a really hard time. And I was kind of expecting, because I had been playing that martyr as well. Like, I know you'll show up for me. I can talk to you about this because, you know, I've given you so much, and like now it's time for me to receive help. And yeah, that was how it was in my mind. But really, yeah, she helped me to see like that I actually, what I needed was within me. And I did like to help her out, and she actually did need it, and I enjoyed that, and it made me feel good about myself. But there were certain things and certain imbalances where I knew it wasn't serving me or her any longer, and that was like really hard to give up because I was addicted to that giving and to that role, like being in that role of caregiver and all those things. And oh, like it made me feel good that I could give to somebody, that I could make a difference in somebody's life, that although I couldn't fix or ease some of the burdens for like all the other people that are suffering, at least I could help one person, you know, and that made me feel good, like that I was able to do that. But then I realized, yeah, it wasn't all totally altruistic either, even though it did make me feel good and it made me feel good about myself. Like there was certain things like that I was using it for, that didn't serve me and it didn't serve her. And so when I lovingly like came to this like conclusion after months and months of like kind of like prayer and asking for guidance about it, and yeah, I realized some certain things, and I was able to communicate with her very lovingly, like this is, you know, I'm letting you go with love, like because like we're blocking our future generations, and we are like, we can't continue playing this thing out right now. Like I'm not saying goodbye forever, but this dynamic and what we've been playing out has to die. And so like, I didn't know how it was going to look and how it was going to be. Like, I just knew we needed a temporary reprieve from, and like this pattern interruption. But of course, like, you know, she wasn't able to see like what a gift, like the gift that was being offered, and she wanted to go into rage and to blame and to an abandonment story about how she was being abandoned. And I know it felt like that too, like because that's how it does seem sometimes when someone just that's been there as a support for us just all of a sudden just leaves. But I had actually left like a long time before she actually noticed my absence. And then when she noticed my absence, she was very, very, very upset and very hurt about it. And I know I felt bad about it, but I felt like this is hers that she needs. Like this is her journey that she needs to take without me. This is the part of her journey that she does need. And I realized too that I had learned the same lessons from a mentor years and years ago, where I had learned more from her absence than I did from her presence, which I learned so much in her presence, but I learned so much more like during her absence. And so like, yeah, this was like the third relationship was with this same mentor that I loved and adored. And like I thought the sun just absolutely shone for her. Like she was like the most amazing woman I have ever met in my whole entire life. And she was that person that I wanted to be. Like she was so full of magic, confidence, and beauty, and she was just so amazing with all of her gifts and skills. And I had never met anyone like her at all. She was just like the most unique, precious gem, and this long lost sister that I felt like, and like also a maternal figure, like because everybody called her Shamama. And I had learned some amazing things during like a dark night of the soul and this major awakening that I had in 2012 that I'm so grateful like to have been brought into her circle and to receive all the gifts that she had to share. And they are just gifts that always just do keep giving because of all of the love that she shared, and that like really that really attracted me was because like I could see all these things about her that was really reflecting like all these beautiful qualities of myself back to me. And so like that's why I was just like I really did admire her and I really idealized her. And I knew she was human, but like there was a part of me that wanted to put on blinders so that she could be my guru and she could be my teacher and she could be my savior. And, you know, she was the one with the answers and she was the one with the magic. And so I created like this image of her in my mind where when she was absent, I would have conversations like with this image of her in my mind. It wasn't really her, but it was this image that I held of her. And so it was like my teacher that, oh, what would Kelly say about this? What would she say about this? How would she feel about this? You know, and how would she work with this? What advice would she give to me if she were here right now? And so like that became like an inner part of my world where that was my go-to sometimes, like, is this right or wrong for me? What would she say? What would she do? Instead of, you know, like, so I was like kind of superimposing like another layer onto my super ego or my spiritual ego or my like external guru or something. Like it took me a long time to like kind of discern and like, what is this? What have I created in my own mind about, you know? And so still asking or just trusting that more clarity will come when it's time to be revealed to me. But yeah, just seeing certain things about like different resentments and different disappointments that I had with my teacher because of certain areas where she wouldn't or she couldn't show up for me. And that showed me where I wasn't showing up for me and where I had projected and given my power away and wanted her to hold it and carry it for me. So yeah, that was super painful as well, like to have to step away and step back from that relationship. And I had been chasing her for years, like, please make time for me because I love you so much, you know, and I would send her different things, like things that I was working on because I knew like, hey, I'll get validation from that. And that's the validation that I need, like, is from, you know, this person that I idealize and then I put on a pedestal, you know. And so always like trying, you know, chasing, mom, look what I did. Look what I did, you know, kind of a thing. And I realized that that was like my own fragile narcissist that was like looking for that attention, that approval, that love and pat on the back. Good job. You're doing so good. You know, kind of a thing. And so it was just like, okay, well, this isn't working for me, you know, anymore. And because when there was agreements like, oh, okay, I have this time, we can maybe, you know, get together and spend and then like the ghost in my life was back, like the ghost. Yeah. And then, yeah, the ghost that was like what kept showing up for me. Like all these people had ghosted me and it was like, okay, well, where have I been a ghost in my own life and where haven't I shown up for myself? And so that was like a really great question to ask myself and just kind of work from there and follow certain threads. And so I am super grateful for all of these relationships and what they've taught me. And I feel like there has been a lot of healing like within myself around these relationships that helped me see where I could be more honoring and more appreciative and more loyal and show up for all these different parts of me and claim them for my own life, for my own totality, like for the love that I am here to be, give, share, and receive. And so, yeah, just wanted to share like a few of those things because the mirror was so great and so powerful for me to be able to see like things that I wouldn't have been able to see without them. And so even though it was very painful and it hurt, and I still feel a little bit like I don't even know how, you know, what roles I got to play for them. And how it looked to them, how I or my own image looked to them. Like, and, but I just, with ruthless compassion, it's okay. Like, I know, like, that it's just a small self-image, and that's just certain parts that I got to play. So I don't need to hold any judgment or any resentment or any disappointment or any regret around anything that relates to all these things. And so I have been practicing, I love you, I thank you, I respect you. I love you, I thank you, I respect you. I love you, I thank you, I respect you. I've been playing, and practicing with that. And it's felt so good to actually know that and to mean it. And also not to have to attach or to possess or to control however those relationships get to grow, get to die, or get to unfold. And so I'm just grateful for what is, what's been, and what will be. And so, yeah, just all these things and unfolding and being revealed to me. Super grateful for all the lessons and this new story, this new love, this new identity of the eternal self, having a human experience and being able to receive and accept both parts of that whole, and reconcile and be the bridge of above and below, because there is no separation. And we are the bridge, and we are that tree, and we are that star, within the heart of the tree. And so I love you all, and I hope you're enjoying your own alchemy and your own journey and your own awakening and all the different phases and stages that we get to experience, learn, grow, and receive. And be for ourselves and be for each other in this whole great web of being. All one love, all through our own beings. So take good care of yourself and be well, be love for yourself. We'll talk to you later, and bye for now.